Well, hello there, how is everyone? I hope you are all well on this fabulous Monday morning. That's right, another week. Here we go. Can I just say, you're looking absolutely amazing for a Monday morning. How do you do it? So we get straight into the meat and potatoes. As this is a little bit of a call out video. Because look, I'm going to have to say this. I did a video yesterday, and it was basically going over the documentation that has been released. And unless you're a bit of an idiot, you can pretty much assume from reading it that the information contained with that document is accurate. Absolutely accurate. There's no lies in it. I've seen this being said, that it's all fabrication, it's lies. You know, if Ann Taylor and co were making statements in that document that were lies, that is punishable by law for perjury. It's real. It's something that we've seen escalate, and as time has progressed, this is where all of what has happened has accumulated to. It's almost like you ask and ask and ask, and you get to the point where you're like, "Fuck this! I'm calling this shit out as it is." And look, if you are someone who truly believes in your United States constitutional rights, then you should at least be open to the possibility that Bryan Kohberger is indeed innocent. And I get some of you have him convicted, and I say it time and time again. Reach inside, think for yourself for once, and think what it is that truly makes you, you, consider that he is indeed guilty. Pre-trial, you've seen enough. You've seen it all. You've seen everything that you need to see to be convinced beyond a reasonable doubt that this guy deserves to potentially die for this crime. Because this is what I'm going to call out. The comment that keeps coming up time and time again, and seems to be sort of the anti-Kohberger favourite phrase, which I might get put on some merch, and that is, they have so much more that you don't know about. Wait to the court hearing. They have so much more evidence. They've got 51 terabytes of stuff. No, they haven't got 51 terabytes of evidence. They've got 51 terabytes of the entire case. Everything. That is every photo that was taken, every conversation that was had, every bit of video that they took, just everything, every single thing. And they've handed it over. So look, it's not 51 terabytes of evidence. And look, if there was stuff that was, this is what we've got. We know you're guilty of this crime, and we're going to potentially seek the death penalty over it. And this is what we've found, and this is why we believe you're guilty. That bit, they haven't done. We've obviously seen the original documentation that led to his arrest and the affidavit, and many people have said, look, this affidavit doesn't have to. And look, side note, if I haven't said that right, I don't care. I do not care. I'm like Starbucks. I say things purposefully, so you comment down below, and it helps push the video out. There you go, that's my secret. So anyway, before I rudely interrupted myself and I lost my train of thought, yeah, so I genuinely have lost my train of thought. Unbeknownst to everybody, I don't script my videos. I've got this memory that just remembers what I'm going to say 99% of the time. But look, Bryan Kohberger, so he has been, this part, if you like, that says, look, that we believe you're guilty of this crime, they haven't handed that over to him. Haven't handed it over, and the original court documentation, the information contained within it, seems to be the limitations of their evidence. So all of these things that a large proportion of you will be using that as your belief that he's guilty simply doesn't exist. It's not real. It's a fabrication. You know, the people who said, yeah, but he was stalking them. Bryan Kohberger's a stalker. What? Where was he stalking? Who was he stalking? It is literally stated in that court documentation that there is no link. That means that they have provided the defence with no link, no proof that there is any connection whatsoever between Bryan Kohberger and these victims. So there removes that situation of Bryan Kohberger being a stalker. So no more can you say this guy's a stalker, because he's not. There's nothing that has been proven, and in fact a sworn document that says that he's not. You get my point. Furthermore, like some of the other things we hear, like that Kohberger was sacked from his job for not performing properly. So what if he did? But the reality is, even of that piece of information, is that we don't know if that's true. And it's pretty much a given that it would appear that he was removed from his employment after the fact, not before the fact. Hence why he still had keys to his office, so on and so forth. Anyway, I don't want to come across as condescending. I want you guys to come to me and tell me what more you feel that they have. If it's been proven that and stated that there is no evidence to suggest that he has any connection to these people whatsoever. So he weren't messaging, he weren't following them on social media. The reports and the digital analysis of all of that has come back and there is nothing. Absolutely nothing. Shut up. You know, it's one of those where when you look at everything, and it would appear that the only piece of evidence that provides a problem is this knife sheath. And I get it. So many people will look at this sheath and go, well, there's a sheath there and it's got his touch DNA on it. And, you know, that puts him bang to rights. But what people fail to understand and accept is that it's not out of the realms of possibility that these law enforcement officers, remember, they haven't dealt with a crime like this before. Or I think the last big crime they had was back in 2015. They are not a police force that deals with this type of thing all the time. It's not uncommon. If someone had tipped them off to Bryan, potentially, maybe someone saw a car that they believed was Bryan's, or someone tipped them off. Maybe Bryan's sister felt that it might be him because she felt that her brother might be a bit weird or he was behaving weirdly. So many of you have thought that Bryan's weird and you've listened to things and believed that he's a weirdo. Maybe someone tipped law enforcement off. So they've looked in some elements of what had happened around the crime and where they can tie that into Bryan, so the car, that even in that document it says that that was wrongfully found, you know, wrongfully identified. People don't listen to things that go beyond their train of thought. And there's so many even content creators out there that because they've kind of jumped all in, balls deep in this theory, it's now hard for them to admit that there is a possibility of something else being amiss. But imagine law enforcement that have not dealt with this sort of thing before. There is so much pressure being put on them. That university in that area, they are a powerhouse. They control many, many things around there. And if you've got students that don't want to come back, you've got students that are leaving, could you imagine the pressure that's being put onto them to make a decision, get this person found? And all of a sudden, we have a situation where it would appear from just what you look at that someone tipped them off. That's the missing link, the domino, that someone tipped them off. And what they've tried to do then is make this person fit. So they've had to move the goalposts on several elements of this case. The initial time frame, the coroner that came out right early on, and the things that she was saying, and the statements that were made by the parents early doors, they now don't fit this narrative. Even Bethany Funk and Dylan Mortensen, the situation there. So Bryan Kohberger requests Bethany Funk, and I'm now of the mindset that Bethany Funk, he's called her because he believes she quite possibly saw something and someone else, and it weren't Bryan. weren't Bryan, and the car was probably seen, and she could have potentially seen the driver of that car, and is that who you look? Is that this person? So she can turn around and say, no, that's not the person. Who knows? I'm spitballing in that bit. But Dylan Mortensen, for instance, her story, that has fractured and changed over it. Going from 1 minute she's, doesn't expect anything, there's nothing fucking odd going on here, it's a party house, she's familiar with the noise, didn't think much of it. Then we go to frozen shock phase and all this bullshit. We've seen the fact that she's apparently seen a witness, but that wasn't stated in the stories that came out, like from Dave, but we don't really even know if Dave's being honest. But my point being that so many elements of this case have changed. Things have changed, they've been adapted, and they seem to have been adapted to make Bryan Kohberger fit. And like I said, I've always felt that Bryan Kohberger had some connection to the situation. And the reason for that, the reason I felt that is because the things like the white Hyundai Elantra that you see in that picture, could it have been his? Yeah, it's quite possibly that could be an Elantra. I'm not saying it is an Elantra, just the fact that it could be one, and he happens to drive one. That they have got DNA on a sheath that's there. So I'm not ruling out the fact that he's got some connection to it, because if that knife sheath was not planted, then you kind of have to assume that there's a possibility that he had a connection to these people and the house in order for it to get there. My issue has always been with the crime itself, and could one person have had the time to do it and the ability to do it? That's what I've had an issue with. But this latest court, I must admit, the more you read it and the more you look into the documentation, the more you think, right, what else could they possibly have? With so many people saying they've got so much more, there's so much more to come out, I'm just thinking to myself, what more could there be? I don't understand what more there could be. I don't get what else could be missing from this. They've got a knife sheath with a bit of DNA on it, and they're not coming forward with that DNA, and they're using stupid arguments to hide it. Oh, we don't want you to hide it because we're afraid that if people realise how it could be used, they'll not come forward. Thinking that nobody on the planet knows how that DNA is used. Come on. Open your eyes, people. This case seems to have been rigged from the start. And I'm not a tinfoil hat wearing person. I'm just calling it as I see it. And it upsets me and frustrates me that so many people walk around blindly listening to people who have specific narratives to push, and you even listen to them manipulate the things that they are saying, and they have to do it to make it fit. And I'm not even calling specific people out, Tyler Fella. I'm not going to drop any names in there to let people know who I'm specifically talking about. And the fact that, when they're talking about specific elements of this case, they miss out important pieces of information, or try and rubbish it, or make it sound like it's not important, or it doesn't make sense, or it's ludicrous to think of this. Well, of course it's ludicrous to think of something if you only tell half the story. And again, I touched on this yesterday. If you want to back Kohberger being guilty 100%, then at least be open to having a discussion about the things that raise the question of that. But up to this point, I've never felt so more strongly that this guy could potentially walk, and actually that he perhaps had no connection to these whatsoever. And for the first time, I'm having a real hard how I can say that this could not have been planted. And I'm not saying it was. But if someone was to say to me, could you put on your children's life that law enforcement didn't plant that sheath in order to get a result because they thought they already had the right person? So all they needed to do was form a connection that would be strong in court to get the conviction they want, and hopefully not have to say that they were tipped off and they just went on someone saying, look, I know Bryan Kohberger and I know he did it. He's not going to admit to it, you're going to have to prove it, but I know he did it. Who knows? Let me know down below. This is video 1 of 2. Should have said that at the beginning. See you all later.